Have you ever felt completely drained after trying to prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it? Have you ever exhausted yourself explaining who you are to people who are determined to misunderstand you? Have you ever given your energy, your time, your love to situations that leave you feeling emptier than before? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're not alone. Millions of people around the world are suffering from a silent epidemic, emotional exhaustion. But here's what most people don't realize. This exhaustion doesn't come from working too hard or having too many responsibilities. It comes from something far more insidious. It comes from giving your precious life energy to things that don't grow you, don't honor you, and don't deserve you. Today, we're going on a journey together. A journey that ancient Buddhist monks discovered thousands of years ago. A journey that will transform how you see yourself, how you protect your energy, and how you finally break free from the chains of seeking validation from a world that may never understand your true value. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is a complete paradigm shift in how you relate to yourself and others. By the end of this journey, you will understand why you've been so exhausted, and more importantly, you'll know exactly what to do about it. Let me start with a truth that might sting a little but needs to be said. Your emotional exhaustion is not accidental. It's the result of specific patterns, specific choices, and specific beliefs that you've been carrying, perhaps for your entire life. And the beautiful news, once you see these patterns clearly, you can change them. The ancient Buddhist teachers understood something profound about human suffering. They taught that most of our pain doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from our relationship with those circumstances. It comes from clinging to what doesn't serve us. It comes from seeking our value in places where it can never be found. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of your energy goes into unnecessary arguments? How much mental space is occupied by overthinking what other people think about you? How many hours have you spent explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you? Every single one of these activities is like pouring water into a bucket with holes in the bottom. You can pour and pour and pour, but you'll never fill it up. You'll just exhaust yourself in the process. And here's the root cause that we need to address head-on: a lack of self-value. When you don't recognize your own inherent worth, you seek it externally. You try to find it in other people's approval, in their validation, in their acceptance. And this is where the suffering begins. Buddhism teaches us a fundamental truth. Suffering comes from clinging to what does not serve you. When you cling to the need for external validation, when you attach your worth to other people's opinions, when you hold onto relationships that drain you, you create your own suffering. But transformation is possible, and it begins the moment you make one powerful choice: to choose self-worth over external validation, to choose peace over proving yourself, to choose your own inner light over the darkness of doubt. There's a question that Buddhist masters have asked their students for centuries, and I want you to sit with this question right now. If your peace was a temple, why would you let everyone enter with dirty feet? Your peace is a temple. Your energy is sacred. Your worth is inherent and unshakable. But you have to protect it. You have to honor it. You have to stop letting everyone walk all over it with their judgments, their misunderstandings, their projections, and their inability to see your true value. Over the next 3 hours, we're going to dismantle every false belief that's been keeping you trapped in the exhausting cycle of seeking external validation. We're going to explore 10 transformative principles that will revolutionize your relationship with yourself and others. And most importantly, we're going to give you practical tools that you can implement immediately to reclaim your energy and return to your inherent worth. Before we continue, I need to tell you something that might sound harsh but is actually incredibly liberating. The people who cannot see your value will never see it, no matter how much you explain yourself. And here's why that's actually good news. Section 1. Stop begging for love, return to yourself first. Let's talk about something that most people are too afraid to admit. We beg for love. not always with words, but with our actions. We bend ourselves into impossible shapes trying to fit into someone else's idea of who we should be. We dim our light so others won't feel threatened. We silence our truth so others won't feel uncomfortable. We give and give and give, hoping that if we just give enough, we'll finally receive the love and acceptance we desperately crave. But here's what the Buddha understood 2,500 years ago, and what modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm. When you chase love from a place of inner emptiness, you're not actually seeking love. You're seeking to fill a void that can only be filled from within. Think about it. Why do we chase validation so desperately? Why do we need others to tell us we're good enough, smart enough, attractive enough, successful enough? The answer is both simple and profound. We chase love from others because we've forgotten our inner worth. We've disconnected from the source of value that exists within us, and so we seek it in external reflections. This is what Buddhists call attachment, the root of all suffering. We become attached to the idea that our worth depends on what others think of us. We become attached to specific outcomes, to certain people liking us, to being perceived in particular ways. And every time reality doesn't match our attachment, we suffer. But pain, according to Buddhist teaching, is not your enemy. Pain is actually guidance. It's your inner wisdom trying to get your attention, trying to tell you something crucial. Return home. Come back to yourself. Stop looking for your value in places where it can never be found. Every time you feel the sting of rejection, every time you feel the ache of not being appreciated, every time you feel the exhaustion of trying to prove yourself, that's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you're looking for love in the wrong place. It's your soul's way of saying, stop begging for love out there. Return to the love that's already here within you. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, but we need connection. We need relationships. We need love from others. And you're absolutely right. Humans are social creatures. We thrive in connection. But there's a world of difference between seeking connection, from a place of wholeness versus seeking connection, from a place of lack. When you seek love because you feel incomplete without it, you enter relationships from a position of need. You become dependent on the other person to make you feel valuable, worthy, loved. And this creates an imbalanced dynamic where you're constantly anxious about losing that person's approval, constantly monitoring their reactions, constantly adjusting yourself to maintain their validation. But when you return to yourself first, when you reconnect with your inherent worth, you enter relationships from a place of overflow. You're not seeking to be completed, you're seeking to share your completeness. You're not desperate for validation, you're offering genuine connection. And this changes everything. The Buddhist concept of returning home doesn't mean isolating yourself from others. It means returning to the truth of who you are beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the beliefs about what you should be, beneath all the wounds and insecurities. It means reconnecting with the essence of your being, the part of you that was whole before the world told you that you weren't. Let me share a practice that Buddhist monks have used for thousands of years to reconnect with this inner home. It's called coming back to the breath. Whenever you notice yourself spiraling into anxiety about what someone thinks of you, whenever you catch yourself desperately trying to prove your worth, whenever you feel that familiar exhaustion of people-pleasing, pause, take a deep breath, and as you breathe in, silently say to yourself, I return home. As you breathe out, say, I am enough. This simple practice interrupts the pattern of seeking external validation and redirects your attention to your internal source of worth. It's not about denying that you want connection or appreciation. It's about reminding yourself that your fundamental value doesn't depend on receiving it. Here's a powerful truth that will set you free. The love you're seeking from others is actually your own love that you've projected outward. You're looking for someone else to give you what you're not giving yourself. You're waiting for external permission to value yourself when the only permission you ever needed was your own. Think about the people you're trying to prove yourself to. Think about the validation you're chasing. Now ask yourself honestly, If you fully valued yourself, would you still need their approval? If you fully loved yourself, would their rejection still devastate you? If you fully trusted in your own worth, would their opinion still define you? The answer is no, and this is the path to freedom. Self-worth is not something you earn through achievements or obtain through others' validation. Self-worth is something you remember. It's something you return to. It's the ground of your being that was there before anyone ever praised you or criticized you, and it will remain there long after all the opinions of the world have faded into silence. Buddhist philosophy teaches that attachment causes suffering, and one of the deepest attachments we carry is attachment to external validation. We attach our sense of self to what others think, and then we suffer when those opinions are negative or when they change. But what if you could detach your worth from external feedback? What if your value was so deeply rooted in your own being that nothing external could shake it? This doesn't mean you become arrogant or dismissive of others. It means you become grounded. It means you become free. It means you can receive appreciation without becoming dependent on it, and you can face criticism without being destroyed by it. Let me give you an affirmation that has the power to transform your life if you truly embody it. I choose myself. Not in a selfish way, not in a way that disregards others, but in a way that honors your own existence as valuable and worthy of your own love and respect. I choose myself means I choose to value my peace over proving myself. I choose myself means I choose to protect my energy rather than drain it trying to win over people who are determined not to see my worth. I choose myself means I choose to return to my inherent value rather than chase external validation. When you truly choose yourself, something miraculous happens. You stop begging for love. You stop contorting yourself to fit other people's expectations. You stop exhausting yourself trying to be enough for people who will never think you are. Instead, you return to the truth. You already are enough. You always have been. You just forgot. And here's what's beautiful about this realization. When you stop begging for love and return to yourself, you actually become more capable of genuine connection. Because now you're not relating to people from a place of need and desperation. You're relating to them from a place of wholeness and authenticity. You're not saying, "Please validate me." You're saying, "I value myself, and I'm choosing to share that value with you." This is the foundation of everything else we're going to explore. Without this return to self-worth, all the other principles will be difficult to implement. But with this foundation in place, everything else becomes possible. So right now, I want you to make a commitment to yourself. A commitment that from this moment forward, you will begin the journey of returning home to your inherent worth. Not tomorrow, not after you achieve something, not after someone finally appreciates you. Now, in this moment, exactly as you are. Take a deep breath, place your hand on your heart, and say out loud or in your mind, "I choose myself. I return to my worth. I am enough." Now that you're beginning to return to yourself, there's a question that will radically change how you see your worth. Why does a tree never question its right to exist? And what does this have to do with your value as a human being? Section 2. Self-worth is remembered, not earned. I want you to think about nature for a moment. Think about a tree standing in a forest. Does that tree ever wonder if it's good enough? Does it question whether it deserves to take up space, to reach toward the sun, to spread its roots deep into the earth? Does it need anyone's approval to exist? Of course not. The tree simply exists. It doesn't earn its right to be there through achievements or productivity. It doesn't prove its worth through performance. It simply is, and that is enough. Now here's the profound question. If a tree doesn't need to earn its right to exist, why do you think you do? This is one of the most liberating truths in Buddhist philosophy. Your worth is intrinsic. It's not based on what you do, what you achieve, what you produce, or how others perceive you. Your worth is inherent in your very existence. Just like that tree, just like the mountains, just like the rivers and the stars. You have an inherent right to exist, to take up space, to be exactly who you are. But somewhere along the way, you learned a different story. You learned that your worth was conditional. You learned that you had to be good enough, smart enough, successful enough, attractive enough, accomplished enough. You learned that love and acceptance were things you had to earn, not things you inherently deserved. And this belief has been exhausting you ever since. Let me share with you a story that Buddhist teachers have told for generations, the story of the monk and the mirror. There was once a young monk who felt deeply inadequate. He compared himself to the elder monks and always found himself lacking. He wasn't as wise, wasn't as disciplined, wasn't as spiritually advanced. He spent his days trying to prove his worth through extreme practices, through constant study, through pushing himself to be better. One day, his master called him into his chambers and handed him a small mirror. "Tell me," the master said, "when you look into this mirror, what do you see?" "I see myself, master," the monk replied. "And what is the value of this reflection?" the master asked. The monk paused, confused. "The value? I suppose it depends on who is looking. To someone who cares for me, the reflection might be valuable. To someone who doesn't know me, it might mean nothing." The master shook his head gently. "You still don't understand. The mirror reflects what is there. It doesn't add value or subtract value based on who is watching. The image exists regardless of whether anyone sees it or appreciates it. Your worth is like this. It exists in your very being, regardless of whether anyone recognizes it or not. You are trying to earn what you already possess." This story contains a profound truth. Your value doesn't come from external recognition. It doesn't come from achievement or approval. It comes from your essence, from the simple fact that you exist. Modern psychology has confirmed what ancient wisdom always knew. Our worth is not something we acquire through accomplishments. Research in self-compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff and others has shown that people who tie their self-worth to external achievements actually suffer more anxiety, depression, and emotional instability than those who recognize their inherent worth regardless of performance. When you believe you have to earn your worth, you put yourself on an endless treadmill. There's always one more goal to achieve, one more person to impress, one more standard to meet. You can never rest because your value is always contingent on the next achievement, the next approval, the next validation. But when you remember that your worth is intrinsic, you step off that exhausting treadmill. You recognize that you don't need to prove anything. You already are valuable. The question is not, how do I become worthy? The question is, how do I remember and honor the worth I already possess? This shift from earning to remembering is transformative. Earning puts you in a position of lack. You don't have something and you need to get it. Remembering puts you in a position of recognition. You have something you temporarily forgot about. Think about a time when you misplaced something valuable, maybe your phone or your keys. When you finally found them, did you feel like you earned them back? No. You felt relief because you remembered where they were. You recognized something that was always yours. This is the relationship you need to have with your self-worth. It's not something lost that you need to earn back. It's something that's always been there, waiting for you to remember it, to recognize it, to claim it once again. But here's where it gets challenging. We live in a society that profits from your sense of inadequacy. Advertising, social media, and even some educational systems are designed to make you feel like you're not enough so that you'll constantly strive to become more, buy more, achieve more. The entire consumer economy depends on people feeling inadequate. This means that remembering your inherent worth is actually a radical act. It's a form of resistance against a culture that wants you to constantly question your value, so you'll keep chasing external validation. Keep buying products that promise to make you enough. Keep comparing yourself to impossible standards. Buddhist teaching offers a powerful framework for this remembrance. The concept of Buddha nature suggests that every being has an inherent enlightened nature, a fundamental goodness and wholeness that exists regardless of circumstances or behaviors. This isn't something you develop or earn. It's something you uncover by removing the layers of false beliefs that obscure it. Imagine your true worth as a golden statue that has been covered in mud over the years. The mud represents all the false beliefs about your inadequacy, all the conditioning that told you that you weren't enough, all the wounds that made you question your value. The work isn't to create the gold. The gold was always there. The work is to wash away the mud so the gold can shine again. Every time you remember your inherent worth, you wash away a little more mud. Every time you refuse to tie your value to external conditions, you reveal more of the gold beneath. Every time you choose self-respect over self-doubt, you come closer to the truth of who you really are. Let me give you a powerful affirmation that can help you reconnect with this truth. My worth is not conditional. I am enough. Say it slowly, feel each word. My worth is not conditional. Your value doesn't depend on circumstances, achievements, or other people's opinions. I am enough. Not I will be enough when. Not I would be enough if. But I am enough, right now exactly as you are. This doesn't mean you stop growing or improving. It means you grow from a place of wholeness rather than lack. You improve because you want to express your potential, not because you need to prove your worth. You develop not to become valuable, but to more fully express the value you already possess. Think about the difference in energy between these two approaches. When you're trying to earn your worth, every setback feels like evidence of your inadequacy. Every criticism confirms your worst fears about yourself. Every failure becomes an identity statement. I failed, therefore I am a failure. But when you remember your inherent worth, setbacks are just information. Criticism is just feedback. Failure is just an event, not an identity. Your fundamental value remains untouched by external circumstances because it was never dependent on them in the first place. This is the freedom that comes from remembering rather than earning. You can take risks without fearing that failure will diminish your worth. You can receive criticism without being devastated, because you know that someone's opinion doesn't define your value. You can face rejection without questioning your fundamental adequacy, because you know that not everyone will recognize your value, and that's okay. Here's a practice that can help you strengthen this remembrance. Every morning when you wake up, before you check your phone, before you start thinking about your to-do list, before you begin comparing yourself to others, take 3 deep breaths. With each breath, silently affirm, I am inherently valuable. My worth is not conditional. I am enough. Do this consistently for 30 days, and you'll begin to notice something shift. The constant anxiety about not being good enough will start to quiet. The desperate need for external validation will start to ease. The exhaustion of trying to prove yourself will start to lift, because you'll be reconnecting with the truth that was always there, waiting for you to remember it. Your worth is like the sun. It's always shining, even when clouds obscure it. The clouds of doubt, fear, and false beliefs may temporarily block your view of your inherent value, but they never diminish it. Your work is not to create the sun. It's to clear away the clouds so you can see what was always there. Here's something that will save you countless hours of exhaustion and frustration. There's a specific type of person you should stop explaining yourself to immediately, and identifying them will transform your relationships and protect your energy like nothing else. Section 3. Stop explaining your worth. 35005000. Have you ever found yourself in an endless conversation trying to explain your perspective, your choices, your feelings, or your worth to someone who just doesn't seem to get it? You present your case clearly and rationally. They misunderstand or dismiss you. So you try again with different words, more examples, more evidence. And still, they don't see it. So you try again, and again, and again. Hours later, you're emotionally drained, frustrated, and wondering why you feel so exhausted. Here's what happened. You just spent enormous amounts of emotional energy trying to make someone see something they are not willing or able to see. You are trying to explain your worth to someone who is committed to not understanding it. This is one of the most common ways people leak their precious life energy, and it's rooted in a false belief. The belief that if you just explain yourself clearly enough, everyone will understand and validate your worth. But here's the truth that will set you free. People who cannot see your value will not see it even if you explain it perfectly. Let me say that again because it's so important. People who cannot see your value will not see it even if you explain it perfectly. This isn't a flaw in your communication. It's not because you're not articulate enough or convincing enough. It's because their inability to see your worth has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their own limitations, biases, wounds, or agendas. Think about it this way. If someone is looking at the world through red-tinted glasses, everything they see will appear red. You could stand in front of them holding a blue object and explain for hours that it's blue, presenting evidence, showing it from different angles, comparing it to other blue things, and they will still see red. The problem isn't the object. The problem isn't your explanation. The problem is the lens through which they're viewing reality. Some people view the world through lenses of judgment, competition, insecurity, or limited understanding. When they look at you, they can't see your true value because their lens distorts or filters it out. And no amount of explaining will change this, at least not until they're ready to change their own lens. Buddhist wisdom has a beautiful story that illustrates this principle, the story of the traveler and the gold. A traveler was walking through a village carrying a pouch of gold coins. As he walked, one coin fell out onto the dusty road. A wealthy merchant saw it fall but walked past, thinking it was just a piece of copper not worth his time. A poor farmer saw the same coin, picked it up, and was grateful for this blessing. Later, a child saw the farmer with the coin and marveled at how shiny and beautiful it was. The gold's value never changed. It was valuable when the merchant dismissed it, valuable when the farmer appreciated it, and valuable when the child admired it. The gold didn't need to explain its worth to the merchant. Its value was inherent and remained constant regardless of whether it was recognized. You are like that gold. Your value is inherent and constant. When someone fails to recognize it, that doesn't diminish it. It simply reveals their inability to see what's actually there. Now I can hear some of you thinking, but what about communication? What about misunderstandings that need to be clarified? What about standing up for myself? These are valid questions, and there's an important distinction to make here. There's a difference between explaining yourself for clarity and explaining yourself for validation. When you explain something once or twice to provide clarity or information, that's healthy communication. But when you find yourself explaining the same thing over and over, trying to convince someone of your worth, trying to make them see your value, trying to justify your existence or your choices, that's when you've crossed from communication into emotional drain. Here's how to tell the difference. Healthy explanation feels like sharing. Unhealthy explanation feels like proving. Healthy explanation comes from a place of, I want you to understand. Unhealthy explanation comes from a place of, I need you to validate me. When you notice yourself stuck in the proving mode, that's your signal to stop. Not because you don't have the right to express yourself, but because continuing in this pattern will only exhaust you without producing the result you want. Let me share a liberating practice that Buddhist monks have used for centuries, the practice of peaceful silence. When you find yourself tempted to over-explain, to prove, to justify your worth, try this instead. Take a deep breath, feel your feet on the ground, and choose silence. Not the silence of repression or bitterness, the silence of sovereignty, the silence that says, I know my worth and I don't need you to confirm it. The silence that protects your energy rather than draining it in fruitless explanations. This doesn't mean you never speak up for yourself. It means you become discerning about when and to whom you offer your explanations. You recognize that your time, your energy, and your emotional resources are valuable, and you don't waste them on people who have already decided not to see your worth. Here's a powerful 24-hour practice that can transform your relationship with over-explaining. For the next 24 hours, commit to not explaining yourself unless absolutely necessary. When you feel the urge to justify, to prove, to convince, pause. Ask yourself, am I explaining for clarity or am I trying to get validation? If it's the latter, choose peaceful silence instead. Notice what happens. You'll probably feel uncomfortable at first. There's a strong conditioning in many of us to constantly justify ourselves, to make sure everyone understands us, to seek approval. But as you sit with the discomfort, you'll discover something profound. You don't actually need their understanding to be okay. Your worth remains intact whether they get it or not. This practice also reveals something important. It shows you who in your life is genuinely interested in understanding you versus who is committed to misunderstanding you. The people who genuinely care will ask questions, will make an effort to understand, will meet you halfway. The people who are committed to misunderstanding you will twist your words, dismiss your feelings, and refuse to see your perspective no matter how clearly you explain it. And here's the key insight. You cannot convince someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. It's like trying to fill a cup that has no bottom. You can pour and pour and pour, and nothing will ever be enough because the container itself is flawed. This realization is incredibly freeing. It means you can stop exhausting yourself trying to make closed minds open. You can stop depleting your energy trying to prove yourself to people who have already decided you're not worthy. You can stop explaining your worth to people who are invested in not seeing it. Instead, you can redirect all that energy toward yourself and toward people who actually appreciate your value. You can invest your explanation energy in relationships that are reciprocal, where your worth is already recognized and celebrated. You can save your words for people who have the capacity and willingness to truly hear them. Think about how much energy you would save if you stopped trying to convince the unconvincible. Think about how much peace you would gain if you stopped explaining yourself to people who are determined not to understand. Think about how much lighter you would feel if you released the burden of needing everyone to see your value. The truth is, not everyone will appreciate you, and that's okay. Not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. Not everyone will recognize your worth, and that's perfectly okay. Because your worth doesn't depend on their recognition. You are like the gold in the story, valuable regardless of who sees it and who doesn't. Here's another affirmation that can help you break the cycle of over-explaining. I release the need to prove my worth to those who cannot see it. My value exists independent of their recognition. Say this to yourself whenever you feel that familiar urge to explain yourself into exhaustion. Remind yourself that your worth is not up for debate. It's not something that needs to be argued for or defended. It simply is. This doesn't make you arrogant or dismissive. It makes you sovereign. It makes you the guardian of your own energy. It makes you selective about where and with whom you invest your precious emotional resources. And here's what's beautiful. When you stop over-explaining yourself, you actually become more powerful in your communication. Because the words you do choose to speak come from a place of centered clarity rather than desperate proving. You communicate from a place of "this is my truth" rather than "please validate my truth." And people respond very differently to that energy. Think about someone you deeply respect, someone who embodies quiet confidence and self-assurance. Do they constantly explain themselves? Do they desperately try to prove their worth to everyone they meet? Probably not. They know their value, and that knowing radiates from them without needing to be constantly verbalized. You can embody this same energy, not by becoming arrogant or closed off, but by becoming rooted in your inherent worth. By recognizing that explaining yourself is a gift you choose to give, not a requirement you owe to everyone. So today, make a commitment to yourself. I will stop explaining my worth to people who are determined not to see it. I will protect my energy by choosing peaceful silence over fruitless explanation. I will save my words for those who have the capacity to truly hear them. And I will trust that my value exists independent of anyone's ability to recognize it. This is not easy work. Years of conditioning have taught many of us that we need to constantly justify ourselves, prove our worth, and seek validation from others. Breaking this pattern takes practice and patience. But every time you choose self-respect over over-explanation, you strengthen your connection to your inherent worth. Every time you honor your energy by refusing to waste it on the unconvincible, you take a step closer to freedom. Now here's where things get really interesting. What if I told you that being kind to everyone, all the time, is actually a form of self-betrayal? And that real compassion requires something most people are terrified to implement. Section 4. Replace pleasing with discernment. Let's talk about something that many people struggle to admit: people-pleasing. On the surface, people-pleasing looks like kindness, generosity, and selflessness. We tell ourselves we're just being nice, just being helpful, just being accommodating. But underneath, something else is happening. Something that's slowly eroding our sense of self and draining our life force. People-pleasing is not actually about being kind to others. It's about managing your own anxiety. It's about avoiding conflict, rejection, or disapproval. It's about trying to control how others perceive you by constantly adjusting yourself to meet their expectations. And at its core, people-pleasing is a form of self-betrayal. Every time you say yes when your heart says no, you betray yourself. Every time you pretend to agree when you actually disagree, you betray yourself. Every time you suppress your own needs to accommodate someone else's wants, you betray yourself. And each of these small betrayals accumulates into a profound disconnection from your authentic self. Buddhist philosophy teaches the concept of right action, acting in alignment with truth and wisdom rather than fear and delusion. People-pleasing is the opposite of right action because it's rooted in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being liked, fear of being alone. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When you people-please, you're not actually being kind to the other person either. You're presenting them with a false version of yourself. You're not giving them the opportunity to know the real you. You're managing their emotions and reactions in a way that denies both of you authentic connection. Real kindness, the kind that Buddhists call metta or loving kindness, comes from a place of authenticity and boundaries. It's not about making everyone happy or avoiding all conflict. It's about acting with genuine care while also honoring your own truth and well-being. This is where discernment comes in. Discernment is the practice of distinguishing between what serves you and what doesn't, between what aligns with your values and what violates them, between healthy relationships and toxic ones. Discernment asks, is this person, situation, or request worthy of my energy? Many people mistake discernment for judgment or selfishness, but there's a crucial difference. Judgment says, you are bad and therefore I reject you. Discernment says, this situation doesn't serve my highest good and therefore I choose differently. Judgment is about condemning others. Discernment is about honoring yourself. Let me share a story that illustrates this principle, the story of the temple with gates. There was a famous temple known for its compassion and generosity. Anyone could enter, and the monks would offer food, shelter, and guidance. But the temple had gates that were closed at certain times. A visitor once asked the head monk, if this is a temple of compassion, why do you have gates? Shouldn't your doors always be open to everyone? The monk smiled and replied, we have gates not to keep people out, but to protect what's within. Without gates, those who would harm the temple could enter freely and destroy the very sanctuary that serves so many. Our compassion is boundless, but our resources are not. The gates allow us to give deeply to those who truly seek help, rather than spreading ourselves so thin that we help no one effectively. This story reveals a profound truth. Compassion must have boundaries. Kindness must have limits. Generosity must be discerning, not because these virtues are flawed, but because without discernment they can be exploited, depleted, and ultimately destroyed. Think about your own life. Are your gates open to everyone all the time? Have you allowed people into your temple who diminish it rather than honor it? Have you spread yourself so thin trying to please everyone that you have nothing left for yourself or for those who truly value you? People-pleasing operates from the belief that everyone deserves unlimited access to you. But this is a false belief. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your time, your energy, your emotional resources, or your presence. And recognizing this doesn't make you selfish. It makes you wise. Here's a powerful question that can transform your relationship with people-pleasing. Am I giving from love or from fear? When you give from love, it feels expansive. You feel aligned with your action. There's no resentment afterward. You're genuinely choosing to offer something because it brings you joy or aligns with your values. When you give from fear, it feels constrictive. You feel obligated or pressured. There's often resentment afterward. You're not genuinely choosing. You're complying out of anxiety about the consequences of not giving. Most people-pleasing behaviors come from fear, not love. We say yes because we're afraid of what will happen if we say no. We accommodate because we're afraid of conflict. We bend because we're afraid of rejection. And these fear-based actions slowly erode our sense of self and our respect for our own needs. Discernment is the practice of pausing before you give and asking yourself this crucial question. Am I giving from love or from fear? If it's from fear, that's your signal to reconsider. If it's from love, genuine, free, joyful love, then give generously. But here's what makes this challenging. We've been conditioned to believe that saying no is mean, that having boundaries is selfish, that prioritizing ourselves is wrong. Especially for women and for people from collectivist cultures, the pressure to be selfless and accommodating can be overwhelming. Buddhist teaching offers a different framework. The concept of mudita, sympathetic joy, teaches us to celebrate the well-being of others, but this doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being. In fact, the Buddha taught that you cannot truly serve others if you yourself are depleted. He said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Notice that he didn't say, "Only others deserve your love." He didn't say, "You deserve your love after everyone else's needs are met." He said you deserve your love as much as anybody, meaning equally, not less than. This is the balance that discernment provides. You can be compassionate toward others while also being compassionate toward yourself. You can be generous with your energy while also protecting it. You can be kind while also being boundaried. Here's a practice that can help you develop discernment. Before you automatically say yes to any request, pause for 3 breaths. In those 3 breaths, ask yourself, do I genuinely want to do this? Do I have the capacity to do this without depleting myself? Does this align with my values and priorities? If the answer to any of these questions is no, you have permission to decline. You don't need an elaborate excuse. You don't need to justify yourself extensively. A simple, "I'm not able to do that," or "that doesn't work for me," is enough. Now I know what some of you are thinking, but what if they get upset? What if they think I'm selfish? What if they reject me? And here's the truth. Some people might get upset. Some people might think you're selfish. Some people might pull away. And that's okay. Because people who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries. People who value you will not expect you to deplete yourself for their benefit. People who see your worth will not require you to please to maintain their approval. The people who get angry when you set boundaries are often the people who were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. They're the people who were comfortable with the version of you that said yes to everything, that never had needs of your own, that existed primarily to serve them. Losing those people, or more accurately, letting them self-select out of your life, is not a loss, it's a liberation. Here's what happens when you replace people-pleasing with discernment. Initially, you might experience some discomfort or pushback. Some people won't like the new boundaried version of you. Some relationships might shift or end. But over time, something beautiful happens. The relationships that remain become more authentic. The people in your life are there because they value the real you, not the people-pleasing version. Your energy levels increase because you're no longer constantly depleting yourself. Your self-respect grows because you're no longer constantly betraying yourself. And perhaps most importantly, you become capable of truly genuine kindness. Because when you give from a place of choice rather than obligation, from love rather than fear, from fullness rather than depletion, your giving becomes pure. It becomes a true gift rather than a resentful sacrifice. Buddhist monks understand this principle deeply. They practice generosity, but they also practice wise allocation of their energy. They help many people, but they also protect their practice time, their meditation time, their solitude. They understand that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and that sustainable service requires sustainable self-care. Think of yourself as a well. When you people please, you allow everyone to draw water from your well without limit. Eventually, the well runs dry, and you have nothing left to give anyone, including yourself. But when you practice discernment, you monitor the water level. You allow those who genuinely need it to draw water, but you also protect your well from being drained completely. You ensure there's always enough water for the well itself to remain healthy and replenishing. This isn't selfishness. This is wisdom. This is sustainability. This is the difference between burning out and burning bright. Here's an affirmation that can support you in this transformation. I give from choice, not from obligation. I am kind to others without betraying myself. I practice discernment, not to reject others, but to honor myself. Let's also address a common fear. If I stop people-pleasing, will I become cold or uncaring? The answer is no. In fact, you'll likely become more genuinely caring. Because right now, your kindness is mixed with resentment, obligation, and fear. When you clear away the people-pleasing and offer genuine, boundaried kindness instead, it becomes purer and more powerful. Think about someone you know who embodies this balanced approach, someone who is genuinely kind but also has clear boundaries. How do you feel around this person? Most people report feeling respected, safe, and comfortable. Why? Because boundaried kindness creates clarity and safety. You know where you stand. You know the person is being authentic with you. You know they're saying yes because they genuinely want to, not because they feel obligated. Contrast this with someone who people pleases excessively. How do you feel around them? Often there's an underlying tension because you can sense their inauthenticity. You might feel guilty for asking them for things because you can tell they're not genuinely wanting to give. You might even lose respect for them because they don't seem to respect themselves. This is the paradox of people-pleasing. We do it to be liked, but it often results in us being respected less. We do it to maintain relationships, but it often results in superficial, inauthentic connections. We do it to avoid conflict, but it often results in inner conflict that's far more destructive. So today, I invite you to begin the practice of replacing people-pleasing with discernment. Start small. Notice one area of your life where you automatically say yes when you'd rather say no. Practice pausing before responding. Practice asking yourself, am I giving from love or from fear? And when you catch yourself people-pleasing, don't judge yourself harshly. This is a deeply ingrained pattern for most of us. Instead, simply notice it with compassion and make a different choice next time. Remember, you are not responsible for managing everyone else's emotions. You are not obligated to meet everyone's expectations. You are not required to say yes to every request. Your kindness is a gift, not an obligation. Your energy is precious, not unlimited. The temple has gates for a reason. Your life needs gates too. Not to shut people out, but to protect what's sacred within. Not to be cruel, but to be wise. Not to reject others, but to honor yourself. Speaking of energy, did you know that you're bleeding life force every single day without even realizing it? And there's a specific list you can create right now that will immediately stop these leaks and transform how you feel. Section 5. Energy is currency, spend it wisely. Imagine waking up every morning with $1,000 in your pocket. This money represents all the energy you have for that day. Every thought, every emotion, every interaction, every activity costs a certain amount of this energy currency. Now here's the question. How are you spending your $1,000? Are you spending $200 arguing with someone on the internet about something that won't matter tomorrow? Are you spending $300 worrying about a situation you can't control? Are you spending $400 trying to prove yourself to someone who's determined not to see your value? Are you spending another $100 replaying past hurts in your mind? By the end of the day, you've spent $1,000, but what did you actually invest in? What grew from that expenditure? What meaningful result did you achieve? For most people, the answer is nothing. They spent their entire energy budget on things that depleted them without giving anything back, and they wonder why they feel exhausted, unfulfilled, and stuck. This is the fundamental principle we need to understand. Energy is currency. It's the most valuable resource you have. And just like money, you can either spend it wastefully or invest it wisely. Buddhist philosophy has understood this principle for thousands of years. The concept of right effort teaches that we must be discerning about where we direct our mental and emotional energy. Not all efforts are equal. Some efforts lead to growth, peace, and awakening. Other efforts lead to suffering, depletion, and stagnation. The Buddha taught that there are 4 aspects of right effort: preventing unwholesome states from arising, abandoning unwholesome states that have already arisen, cultivating wholesome states, maintaining wholesome states that have already been cultivated. Notice the first 2 aspects, preventing and abandoning unwholesome states. This is essentially energy protection. It's recognizing that some thoughts, emotions, and engagements are energy drains that don't serve your highest good, and actively choosing not to invest your energy there. Let's break down the most common energy leaks that most people experience. Energy leak 1. Unnecessary arguments. How much of your energy goes into arguments that don't need to happen? Arguments with strangers on social media about topics that won't change their mind or yours. Arguments with family members about old grievances that have been discussed 100 times before. Arguments with yourself about decisions that have already been made. These arguments are like leaving all your lights on in a house you're not even in. Pure waste. The energy spent on unnecessary arguments almost never produces a positive outcome. It just leaves both parties drained, defensive, and more entrenched in their positions. Energy leak 2. Toxic people. There are people in your life who consistently drain your energy. Every interaction with them leaves you feeling exhausted, frustrated, anxious, or depressed. They might be complainers who never take action. They might be critics who never offer support. They might be takers who never give back. They might be drama creators who thrive on chaos. These people are like a hole in your energy bucket. No matter how much energy you have, if you're constantly around people who drain it, you'll always feel depleted. Energy leak 3. Excessive worry. Worry is perhaps the most common energy leak. We worry about things that might happen but probably won't. We worry about things that have already happened and can't be changed. We worry about what other people think. We worry about the future, about money, about relationships, about health. And here's the thing about worry. It's completely unproductive. Worry is not problem solving. Worry is not preparation. Worry is just spending energy on imaginary scenarios while accomplishing nothing. The Buddha said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." Why? Because the present moment is the only place where your energy can actually create change. Energy leak 4, overthinking. Related to worry but distinct from it, overthinking involves mentally replaying conversations, analyzing situations to death, second-guessing decisions, and getting lost in endless mental loops. Overthinking is like running on a mental treadmill, lots of energy expended, but you don't actually go anywhere. Energy leak 5, comparison. How much energy do you spend comparing yourself to others? Scrolling through social media, measuring your life against the curated highlights of others' lives. Feeling inadequate because someone else seems more successful, attractive, happy, or accomplished. Comparison is an energy drain that produces nothing but suffering. It takes you out of your own journey and puts you into a competition that doesn't actually exist. Now, let's talk about energy investments, the places where spending energy actually produces returns. Energy investment 1, self-care. Taking care of your physical health, mental well-being, and emotional balance is not selfish, it's foundational. When you invest energy in sleep, nutrition, exercise, meditation, and relaxation, you're actually creating more energy. It's like depositing money into a savings account that earns interest. Energy investment 2, meaningful relationships. Relationships that are reciprocal, supportive, and authentic give back energy. After spending time with certain people, you feel uplifted, inspired, understood, and energized. These relationships are investments that pay dividends. Energy investment 3, personal growth. Learning, developing new skills, working on your healing, pursuing your passions. These activities require energy, but they also generate energy through the sense of meaning, purpose, and accomplishment they provide. Energy investment 4, creative expression. Whether it's art, writing, music, cooking, gardening, or any other form of creativity, these activities channel your energy into something tangible and fulfilling. Energy investment 5, contribution. Genuinely helping others, not people-pleasing, but authentic service, from a place of fullness creates a sense of meaning and connection that actually energizes you rather than depletes you. Now, let me share a powerful story that illustrates this principle, the story of the monk's oil lamp. There was a monk who tended the temple's oil lamp. Each evening, he would fill the lamp with just enough oil to burn through the night, providing light for the evening meditation and prayers. One evening, a visitor came to the temple and asked if he could take some oil for his journey. The monk generously gave him oil from the lamp. Then another visitor came, and another, and another. The monk, being kind-hearted, gave each of them oil. By the time evening came, the lamp had barely enough oil to burn for an hour. The temple was dark during the most important meditation time. The monks couldn't read their texts. The evening prayers were disrupted. The head monk called the kind monk to his chambers and said, "Your generosity is admirable, but your discernment is lacking. The lamp's purpose is to serve the temple. By giving away all its oil to individual travelers, you failed in the lamp's primary function. Generosity without wisdom is waste." This story teaches us that we must be wise about our energy expenditure. Yes, be generous. Yes, be kind. But also be discerning. Your primary responsibility is to maintain your own lamp, your own energy, vitality, and light. Only from a place of sustainability can you truly serve others. So here's a powerful practice that can immediately transform your energy levels. Create a no-energy list. Take out a piece of paper or open a document on your phone. Write down the specific things that drain your energy without giving anything meaningful back. Be honest and specific. Your list might include things like arguments about politics on social media, trying to convince specific person to see my worth, worrying about what specific person thinks of me, checking my ex's social media, comparing myself to specific person or group, complaining without taking action, rehashing old resentments, saying yes when I want to say no. Once you have your list, make a commitment. For the next week, You will not spend energy on anything on this list. Every time you're tempted to engage in one of these energy leaks, you'll stop, take a breath, and redirect your energy towards something on your energy investment list instead. This practice is incredibly powerful because it makes your energy expenditure conscious rather than unconscious. Most people leak energy all day long without even realizing it. They're on autopilot, engaging in habitual patterns that drain them. This practice interrupts those patterns and puts you back in the driver's seat of your own energy. Let me give you another practical tool, the energy audit. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to review where your energy went. Ask yourself, what were my major energy expenditures today? Which of these were investments that gave back? Which were leaks that just drained me? What will I do differently tomorrow? This simple practice builds awareness, and awareness is the first step to change. You can't manage what you don't measure. By auditing your energy, you become conscious of your patterns, and consciousness creates choice. Here's an affirmation to support this practice. My energy is precious. I protect it fiercely. I invest it wisely. I spend it only on what grows me. Think about successful people you admire, whether they're spiritual leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, or anyone who seems to accomplish meaningful things while maintaining their peace. What do they have in common? They're selective about where they invest their energy. They say no to energy leaks. They protect their focus. They guard their emotional resources. They understand that you cannot do everything, be everywhere, please everyone, or engage with everything. You must choose. And the quality of your choices about where you invest your energy determines the quality of your life. Buddhist practice includes a concept called guarding the sense doors, being mindful about what you allow into your consciousness through your senses. What you watch, what you read, what you listen to, who you spend time with, all of these are sense doors that either protect or drain your energy. In our modern world, we're bombarded with information, stimulation, and demands on our attention. Social media, news, advertisements, emails, messages, all of these are constantly pulling at our energy. If you leave all the sense doors wide open, allowing everything in, you'll be in a constant state of depletion. But if you become a guardian of your sense doors, selective about what you consume, who you engage with, and where you direct your attention, you become the sovereign of your own energy. Here's a practical example. Many people start their day by immediately checking their phone, scrolling through social media, reading news, responding to messages. Within the first hour of waking, they've already spent a huge portion of their daily energy on things that probably don't align with their highest priorities. What if instead you started your day by investing energy in yourself first? Meditation, exercise, journaling, a healthy breakfast, or simply sitting in quiet contemplation. This would set a completely different energetic tone for the day. Or consider how much energy goes into maintaining your social media presence. Posting, checking likes, reading comments, comparing yourself to others, getting into discussions. Is this energy well spent? For some people, social media is a genuine tool for connection or business. For others, it's just a massive energy drain disguised as connection. The question isn't whether social media or any other activity is inherently bad. The question is this a wise use of MY energy given MY goals, values, and limited resources? Only you can answer this question, but you must ask it. You must become conscious of where your energy is going and whether that expenditure aligns with who you want to be and what you want to create in your life. Remember, every moment you're choosing. You're choosing where your attention goes. You're choosing what thoughts to engage with. You're choosing which relationships to invest in. You're choosing what activities to pursue. And each of these choices is an energy transaction. Are you spending or investing? Are you draining or filling? Are you depleting or replenishing? The Buddhist path is about becoming conscious of these choices and making them wisely. It's about recognizing that you have agency over your energy, even when you can't control external circumstances. It's about taking responsibility for your inner resources and protecting them as the precious gifts they are. Now here's something that might make you uncomfortable but will ultimately set you free. Not everyone deserves a seat at the table of your life. And there's a specific type of person you need to distance yourself from immediately if you want to reclaim your peace. Section 6. Not everyone deserves access to you. Let me ask you a direct question. If someone repeatedly disrespected you, drained your energy, dismissed your feelings, and took advantage of your kindness, would you invite them into your home? Would you give them a key to your house? Would you allow them unlimited access to your personal space? Most people would immediately say no. It seems obvious that you wouldn't give someone physical access to your home if they've proven they'll damage it. And yet, many of us do exactly this with our emotional and energetic space. We allow people who have repeatedly hurt us, disrespected us, or drained us to have unlimited access to our inner world. We tolerate their presence, engage with their demands, and accommodate their behavior, even though we wouldn't let them past our physical doorstep. Why do we do this? The answer usually comes down to one core fear, the fear of being alone. We tolerate disrespect, we accept breadcrumbs of affection, we endure toxic behavior, all because we're afraid that if we set boundaries, we'll lose people. And losing people means being alone, and being alone feels terrifying. But here's what Buddhist wisdom teaches us. Being alone is very different from being lonely. You can be surrounded by people and feel profoundly lonely if those people don't truly see you, value you, or honor you. And you can be physically alone while feeling deeply connected to yourself, to nature, to the universe, to the truth of your being. The fear of being alone often keeps us in situations that are far worse than solitude. We stay in friendships that drain us. We maintain relationships with family members who undermine us. We keep romantic partners who don't respect us. And we convince ourselves that this is better than being alone. But is it really? Is a connection that leaves you feeling empty, anxious, or diminished better than the peace of solitude? Is a relationship where you're constantly walking on eggshells better than the freedom of being yourself? Is the presence of someone who consistently disrespects you better than your own company? The Buddha taught that we must be discerning about our associations. There's a famous Buddhist text called the Sigalovada Sutta that specifically addresses how to recognize which people are worthy of your trust and energy, and which are not. The text describes false friends, people who appear to care about you but actually harm you. Those who take everything but give nothing. Those who give a little but expect much in return. Those who associate with you only when they need something. Those who speak kindly to your face but criticize you behind your back. Sound familiar? Most of us have encountered these types of people in our lives. And yet, we often continue giving them access to our energy, our time, our emotional resources, sometimes for years or even decades. Why? Because we've been conditioned to believe that setting boundaries means we're being mean, selfish, or unforgiving. We've been taught that good people are endlessly tolerant, always forgiving, perpetually accommodating. We've internalized the message that our needs don't matter as much as maintaining relationships, even toxic ones. But this is not wisdom. This is dysfunction dressed up as virtue. Let me share a story that illustrates this principle, the story of the fire with stones. There was a fire that burned brightly in the center of a village, providing warmth to all who gathered around it. Some villagers approached the fire with gratitude, sitting at a respectful distance, enjoying the warmth without harming the flames. Others brought wood to feed the fire, ensuring it would continue to burn. But there were also villagers who threw stones at the fire, trying to scatter the flames for their own amusement. They sat too close, suffocating the fire's oxygen. They took burning logs away, diminishing the warmth for everyone else. One day, the keeper of the fire built a circle of stones around it, not to keep warmth from those who honored it, but to protect it from those who would harm it. Some villagers complained, "Why have you limited access to the fire? Aren't you being selfish?" The keeper replied, "I have not limited access to the warmth. I have only protected the fire from being extinguished. Those who honor the fire may sit close. Those who would harm it must remain at a distance. This is not selfishness. This is preservation. A fire that is not protected will eventually die, and then no one will have its warmth." You are the fire in this story. Your energy, your peace, your emotional well-being. These are the flames that provide warmth not only to you but to all those who genuinely care about you. But if you allow everyone unlimited access, especially those who harm you, your fire will eventually be extinguished. And then what good are you to anyone? When you're completely depleted, when your spirit is broken, when your energy is exhausted, you have nothing left to give to yourself or to the people who truly matter. So building boundaries around your fire is not selfishness. It's wisdom. It's preservation. It's ensuring that your light can continue to shine. But how do you know who deserves access and who doesn't? Here are some clear indicators. People who deserve limited or no access. They consistently disrespect your boundaries. They drain your energy without reciprocating. They dismiss or minimize your feelings. They only reach out when they need something. They speak negatively about you to others. They compete with you rather than celebrate you. They make you feel worse about yourself, not better. They refuse to acknowledge their harmful behavior. They require you to constantly prove your worth to them. People who deserve access. They respect your boundaries. The relationship feels reciprocal and balanced. They honor your feelings even when they don't fully understand them. They show up consistently, not just when they need something. They speak well of you to others. They celebrate your wins without jealousy. They make you feel valued and appreciated. They acknowledge mistakes and work to repair harm. They accept and appreciate you as you are. Look at the people in your life and honestly assess which category they fall into. This isn't about judging them as bad people. It's about recognizing whether the relationship is healthy and worthy of your limited energy. Remember, you have a finite amount of life force. You have limited time, limited emotional resources, limited energy. Every person you allow into your inner circle gets access to these precious resources. So it makes sense to be selective, doesn't it? Think of it this way. If you had $1 million, would you give access to your bank account to everyone? Would you let anyone withdraw funds whenever they wanted? Of course not. You'd be very selective about who has that kind of access to your resources. Your energy, your peace, your emotional well-being, these are even more valuable than money. They're irreplaceable. Once your energy is spent, once your peace is disturbed, once your emotional well-being is damaged, you can't just go earn more the way you can with money. So why are we less protective of these infinitely valuable resources than we would be of our financial resources? Often it's because we can't see energy and emotional well-being as clearly as we can see money. We can't quantify exactly how much peace we've lost to a toxic relationship. We can't measure precisely how much energy has been drained by someone's constant negativity. So we underestimate the cost. But your body knows the cost. Your spirit knows the cost. That exhaustion you feel. That heaviness in your chest. That sense of depletion. These are your internal accounting system telling you that you're spending too much on people and situations that aren't giving back. Buddhist practice includes the concept of admirable friendship or kalyanamitta. These are relationships that support your spiritual growth, your well-being, your highest potential. The Buddha considered such friendships not just helpful but essential. He said that admirable friendship is the whole of the holy life. This means relationships matter immensely, but not all relationships. The quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life and your spiritual development. One admirable friend, someone who truly sees you, supports you, and brings out the best in you, is worth more than dozens of superficial or toxic connections. So the question isn't, should I have relationships? The question is, are my relationships nourishing my spirit or draining it? And if the answer is that certain relationships are consistently draining you, you have not just the right but the responsibility to limit or end them. Not out of revenge or bitterness, but out of self-preservation and wisdom. This doesn't always mean cutting people off completely. Sometimes it means reducing contact frequency, limiting the depth of what you share, setting clear boundaries about what behavior you'll accept, ending certain types of interactions while maintaining others, creating emotional distance while maintaining physical proximity, especially with family. The point is to protect your inner fire while being as compassionate as possible. You can wish someone well while also recognizing that having them in your life is harmful to your well-being. Here's an affirmation that can help you embrace this truth. I have the right to choose who has access to me. I protect my peace by being selective about my relationships. My boundaries are not rejection, they are self-respect. Now I want to address a common concern. But what about forgiveness? Isn't Buddhism about compassion and letting go? Yes, Buddhism emphasizes both compassion and letting go. But here's what's important to understand. Forgiveness doesn't require ongoing access. Compassion doesn't mean tolerating harm. Letting go doesn't mean allowing people to continue hurting you. You can forgive someone for past hurts without inviting them back into your life. You can have compassion for why someone behaves the way they do without accepting that behavior toward you. You can let go of resentment while also maintaining firm boundaries. In fact, sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do, for yourself and for the other person, is to step away from a toxic dynamic. Staying in a harmful relationship often enables the other person's dysfunction and prevents both of you from growth. When you stop accepting disrespect, you're actually giving the other person an opportunity to reflect on their behavior. When you stop people-pleasing, you're allowing authentic connection to emerge or revealing that there was no real connection there to begin with. When you set boundaries, you're teaching people how you deserve to be treated. This is not cruelty, this is clarity. Think about the people in your life right now. Are there relationships where you're constantly anxious, where you're walking on eggshells, where you feel depleted after every interaction? These are clear signs that someone has more access to you than they should. What would it feel like to limit that access, to create some space, to protect your energy? Initially, it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilty. You might worry about their reaction. But beneath that discomfort, you'll likely feel something else: relief, peace, a sense of taking back your power. And over time, as you become more selective about who has access to you, something beautiful happens. The quality of your relationships improves. The people who remain are the ones who truly value you. The interactions you have become more meaningful. Your energy is invested in connections that actually nourish your soul. You also discover something profound. You're better company for yourself than you thought. The solitude you feared turns out to be peaceful. The alone time you avoided becomes restorative. The space you create allows you to hear your own voice again, to reconnect with your own desires, to remember who you are beneath all the relationships and roles and expectations. This is the paradox. By becoming more selective about who has access to you, you actually become more available for genuine connection. By protecting your fire, you ensure it burns brighter for those who truly appreciate its warmth. Remember, you are not obligated to maintain relationships that harm you. You are not required to give everyone unlimited chances. You are not responsible for other people's emotional reactions to your boundaries. Your primary responsibility is to protect your own well-being so that you can show up as your best self for the people, and purposes that truly matter. Speaking of boundaries, there's one specific practice that most people resist, but that will transform your life faster than anything else. It's the practice of saying this one powerful word that we've been taught is selfish, but is actually essential for self-respect. Section 7. Boundaries are self-respect in action. There's a word that has the power to transform your life. A word that can protect your energy, preserve your peace, and honor your truth. A word that, despite being only 2 letters long, many people struggle to say. That word is no. For many of us, saying no feels almost impossible. We've been conditioned since childhood to be agreeable, accommodating, and pleasant. We've learned that saying yes makes people happy, while saying no makes people disappointed or angry. We've internalized the message that our worth depends on our usefulness to others, on how much we can do, how much we can give, how accommodating we can be. And so we say yes when we mean no. We agree when we want to decline. We accept when we want to refuse. And each of these moments creates a small crack in our sense of self, a tiny betrayal that accumulates over time into a profound disconnection from our own truth. Buddhist philosophy has a powerful teaching about this, the practice of right speech. Right speech includes not just refraining from lies, harsh words, and gossip, but also speaking in alignment with your truth. When you say yes while your heart says no, you're violating right speech, not toward the other person, but toward yourself. You're lying to yourself about your capacity, your desires, your boundaries. And this internal lie creates suffering in the same way that external lies do. Let me share a story that illustrates this principle, the story of the bent tree. There was once a young tree growing near a path. Every time people walked by, they would lean on the tree, hang their bags on its branches, or pull on it for support. The tree, wanting to be helpful and not wanting to seem unwelcoming, allowed all of this without resistance. Over time, the constant bending and pulling began to deform the tree. Its trunk grew crooked. Its branches weakened. It could no longer grow straight toward the sun. Eventually, it became so bent and damaged that it could no longer support even its own weight, let alone anyone else's. An elder tree nearby observed all of this and said, "You wanted to be helpful, but by never resisting, by never standing firm, you've become unable to help yourself or anyone else. A tree that stands straight can provide shade for many. A tree that bends to every demand eventually breaks." This story reveals a profound truth. Boundaries are not selfishness. They are self-preservation. They are the difference between sustainable service and self-destruction. When you never say no, when you never establish limits, when you allow yourself to be bent in every direction, you don't actually become more helpful or more valuable to others. You become weakened, depleted, and eventually unable to support anything, including yourself. Boundaries are not walls that shut people out. They are gates that you control, opening them for those who honor you and closing them for those who would harm you. Boundaries are the practice of saying, "This far and no further. This I can give and this I cannot. This behavior I will accept and this I will not." And here's what's crucial to understand. Boundaries are self-respect in action. Every time you set a boundary, you're sending yourself a powerful message. I matter. My needs matter. My peace matters. My well-being matters. And every time you violate your own boundaries by saying yes when you mean no, you're sending the opposite message. I don't matter. Other people's comfort is more important than mine. I exist to serve, not to have needs of my own. Which message do you want to send to yourself? Because your subconscious is listening. Your spirit is paying attention. And the way you treat yourself becomes the template for how you allow others to treat you. Think about it this way. If you consistently show people that your boundaries are flexible, that your no can be turned into yes with enough pressure, that your limits don't really mean anything, you're training them to disrespect you. Not because they're necessarily bad people, but because you've taught them that respecting your boundaries is optional. But when you consistently honor your own boundaries, when your no means no, When your limits are clear and firm, you train people to respect you. You show them that you're serious about your well-being. You demonstrate that you value yourself, and they learn to value you accordingly. Now I want to address the discomfort that comes with setting boundaries. When you start saying no after years of saying yes, people will react. Some will be confused. Some will be disappointed. Some will be angry. Some will accuse you of being selfish, cold, or uncaring. This is normal, and it's actually a good sign. The people who react negatively to your boundaries are often the people who were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. They're comfortable with the version of you that never says no, never has needs, never puts yourself first. Your new boundaries threaten this comfortable arrangement. But here's what you need to remember. Their discomfort with your boundaries is not your responsibility. Their disappointment is not your problem to fix. Their anger is not evidence that you're doing something wrong. It's often evidence that you're doing something right. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. You are not obligated to contort yourself to make others comfortable. You are not required to sacrifice your well-being to maintain the status quo. Let me give you a powerful practice that can transform your relationship with boundaries. For the next 7 days, commit to saying one honest no per day. It doesn't have to be a big no. It can be small. No, I can't take on that extra task. No, I don't want to go to that event. No, I can't help you move this weekend. No, I need some alone time. Pay attention to how it feels to honor your truth with that no. Notice any guilt, fear, or discomfort that arises. Don't judge these feelings, just notice them. And then notice something else, the relief, the sense of integrity, the feeling of taking back your power. Also notice how people respond. You might be surprised to find that most people simply accept your no and move on. The catastrophic consequences you feared, rejection, anger, abandonment, often don't materialize. And when they do, you get valuable information about which relationships are conditional upon your compliance. Here's another crucial aspect of boundaries. They must be backed up with consequences. A boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. For example, if you tell someone, "I need you to stop criticizing me," but then you continue engaging with them exactly as before when they criticize you, you've communicated that your boundary doesn't actually mean anything. They can cross it without consequences, so why would they stop? But if you say, "I need you to stop criticizing me, and if you continue, I will end the conversation and leave," and then you actually follow through when they criticize you, now you've established a real boundary. You've shown that you're serious, that your well-being is non-negotiable, that crossing your boundary has consequences. This doesn't mean you have to be aggressive or mean. You can be kind and firm at the same time. You can say, "I care about you and I'm not willing to be spoken to that way. Let's talk when we can communicate respectfully," and then leave. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron teaches about idiot compassion. Compassion that's actually enabling harmful behavior rather than supporting genuine growth. When you tolerate disrespect in the name of being kind, when you accept mistreatment to avoid conflict, when you sacrifice your well-being to keep the peace, that's idiot compassion. Real compassion for yourself and for others sometimes requires saying no. It requires setting limits. It requires walking away from situations that are harmful. Think about someone you deeply respect, someone who has strong, healthy boundaries. How do you feel around this person? Most people report feeling safe, respected, and comfortable. Why? Because clear boundaries create clarity and safety. You know where you stand. You know what's okay and what's not. There's no confusion, no guessing, no walking on eggshells. Now think about someone who has no boundaries, someone who says yes to everything, who never stands up for themselves, who tolerates any behavior. How do you feel around this person? Often there's discomfort because the dynamic feels imbalanced. You might even lose respect for them because they don't seem to respect themselves. This is the paradox of boundaries. We fear that setting them will make people like us less, but often the opposite is true. People respect those who respect themselves. People feel safe around those who have clear boundaries. People trust those who say what they mean and mean what they say. And here's another benefit of boundaries. They actually improve your relationships. When you're no longer saying yes out of obligation and resentment, your yes becomes genuine. When you're no longer suppressing your needs and building resentment, your interactions become more authentic. When you're no longer drained by giving more than you actually have more to give from a place of fullness. Let me share some specific language that can help you set boundaries. For requests you want to decline. I'm not able to do that. That doesn't work for me. I need to say no to that. I don't have the capacity for that right now. Notice these statements don't require elaborate justifications. You don't need to prove that your no is valid. No is a complete sentence. Though you can add brief context if you choose, you're not obligated to justify your boundaries. For behavior you need to address. I'm not comfortable with that. I need you to stop doing specific behavior. That crosses a boundary for me. I won't continue this conversation if specific behavior continues. For protecting your time and energy. I need some alone time right now. I'm not available this weekend. I can only commit to specific limited amount. I need to leave by specific time. Practice saying these phrases out loud, even when you're alone. Get comfortable with the words. Feel them in your body. Notice any resistance or discomfort. Work through it by repeatedly affirming your right to have boundaries. Here's an affirmation that can support your boundary-setting practice. Saying yes when my heart says no is self-betrayal. I honor myself by speaking my truth. My boundaries are not rejection of others. They are respect for myself. Now let's talk about guilt. Guilt is often the biggest obstacle to setting boundaries. When we say no, we feel guilty. When we prioritize ourselves, we feel selfish. When we disappoint someone, we feel responsible for their feelings. But here's what you need to understand about guilt. Guilt is appropriate when you've actually done something wrong, when you've violated your values or harmed someone. But guilt about having boundaries is not appropriate guilt. It's conditioned guilt, guilt that's been programmed into you by a society, family system, or religious upbringing that taught you that your needs don't matter. This conditioned guilt doesn't deserve your attention or respect. It's not guiding you toward being a better person. It's just keeping you trapped in patterns of self-neglect and people-pleasing. When you feel guilty about setting a boundary, pause and ask yourself, have I actually done something wrong, or am I just violating old programming that told me I don't matter? Usually, it's the latter. And here's something powerful to remember. You can feel guilty and still do the right thing. You can feel uncomfortable and still honor your boundaries. Feelings are just feelings. They don't dictate your actions. You can acknowledge the guilt, thank it for its concern, and then set the boundary anyway. Let's also address the fear of losing people. If I set boundaries, people will leave. And you know what? Some might. And that's okay. Actually, it's more than okay, it's valuable information. People who leave when you set healthy boundaries are people who were only interested in the version of you that had no limits, no needs, no self-respect. They wanted access without reciprocity. They wanted you to be available without offering availability in return. They wanted you to give without them having to honor your value. Do you really want these people in your life? Do you want relationships that are conditional upon your self-betrayal? Do you want connections that require you to abandon yourself? The people who truly care about you will not leave when you set boundaries. They might need time to adjust to the new dynamic, but they will respect your limits because they respect you. They will honor your needs because they value the relationship enough to want it to be sustainable and healthy. And here's the beautiful truth. When you clear out the relationships that were based on your lack of boundaries, You create space for relationships based on mutual respect, reciprocity, and genuine connection. You create room for people who celebrate your boundaries rather than resent them. You attract relationships that nourish your soul rather than drain it. Think of boundaries as a filter. They filter out people and situations that aren't aligned with your well-being, and they allow through those that are. This filter is essential for a healthy, sustainable, meaningful life. Without boundaries, you're like a house with no doors or walls. Everything and everyone can come in at any time. There's no protection, no privacy, no control over your space. With boundaries, you're like a house with doors that you control. You can open them for welcomed guests and close them for protection. You decide who enters and when. Your life is your house. Your energy is your space. You are the keeper of the doors. And it's not selfish to control who has access. It's wisdom. Let me share one more practice that can powerfully support your boundary setting: the boundary rehearsal. Think of a specific situation where you need to set a boundary but have been afraid to. Maybe it's with a family member who constantly criticizes you. Maybe it's with a friend who only calls when they need something. Maybe it's with a coworker who dumps their work on you. Imagine the situation clearly. Now imagine yourself setting the boundary clearly, calmly, firmly. What would you say? How would you say it? What would you do if they pushed back? Visualize yourself staying firm, honoring your truth, protecting your peace. Rehearse this scenario multiple times in your mind. Feel yourself getting more comfortable with the boundary. Notice your confidence growing. Then, when the actual situation arises, you'll be prepared. You'll have practiced. It will feel less scary and more possible. Remember, boundaries are not mean. They're not selfish. They're not cruel. They're self-respect in action. They're the practical application of knowing your worth. They're the difference between sustainable relationships and destructive dynamics. Every time you set a boundary, you're choosing yourself. You're honoring your needs. You're protecting your peace. You're demonstrating to yourself and others that you matter. And you do matter. Your needs are valid. Your limits are real. Your peace is precious. You have every right to protect these things and absolutely no obligation to apologize for doing so. Now we come to one of the most challenging teachings in all of Buddhist philosophy, a practice that seems counterintuitive but holds the key to your emotional freedom. It's about letting go of what we love most, and why this doesn't mean what you think it means. Section 8. Detach to protect your spirit. One of the most misunderstood concepts in Buddhist philosophy is detachment. When people hear the word detachment, they often think it means becoming cold, uncaring, or emotionally distant. They imagine a person who doesn't love, doesn't care, doesn't feel, someone who's emotionally shut down. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Buddhist detachment is not about caring less. It's about attaching less, and there's a profound difference. Let me explain what attachment means in Buddhist philosophy. Attachment is clinging, the desperate grasping onto things, people, or outcomes because we believe our happiness depends on them. It's the mental and emotional contraction that happens when we think, I cannot be okay unless this person loves me, unless this situation works out, unless things go the way I want. Attachment creates suffering because it makes our peace conditional. It makes our well-being dependent on things we can't fully control. It puts our emotional state at the mercy of external circumstances. Detachment, on the other hand, is the practice of loving, caring, and engaging fully with life while releasing the desperate need to control outcomes. It's the practice of holding things lightly rather than clutching them tightly. It's the practice of appreciating what's here while accepting that everything is temporary. Think about the difference between holding sand in your hand. If you clutch the sand tightly in a closed fist, it squeezes out between your fingers and you lose it. But if you hold your hand open, the sand rests there gently, and you can appreciate it fully while it's present and release it gracefully when it's time to go. This is the essence of detachment, holding life with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. Now I know what you're thinking, but letting go is painful. Detachment sounds like giving up on what I love. How can I just not care about outcomes? These are valid concerns, so let's address them deeply. First, letting go is painful. The Buddha never said it wasn't. In fact, he acknowledged that letting go of attachments is one of the most difficult aspects of the spiritual path. Why? Because we've built our entire sense of security, identity, and happiness around these attachments. We attach to people and tell ourselves, I need this person to be happy. We attach to outcomes and tell ourselves, I need this to work out or my life will be ruined. We attach to our self-image and tell ourselves, I need to be seen a certain way or I'm worthless. These attachments feel safe because they give us something to hold on to, something that creates the illusion of control. But they're actually the source of our deepest suffering. Let me share a story that beautifully illustrates this principle, the story of the healed bird. There was once a woman who found an injured bird and nursed it back to health. She fed it, tended its wounds, and created a comfortable cage for it to rest in. Over weeks, the bird healed and grew stronger. The woman grew attached to the bird. She loved its songs, its presence, its company. As the bird grew healthier, it began to flutter against the cage bars, clearly wanting to fly. But the woman kept the cage closed. I love you, she told the bird. I saved you. You need me. You belong with me. The bird grew more agitated, more desperate. Its songs became sad and infrequent. Its feathers began to dull. The woman told herself she was keeping the bird safe, that the world outside was dangerous, that her love justified keeping it caged. One day a monk visited the woman and observed the bird. He said to her, You claim to love this bird, but what you feel is attachment, not love. Love wants the beloved to thrive. Attachment wants to possess. Love sets free. Attachment cages. Love is generous. Attachment is fearful. The woman protested, But if I let it go, it might die. It might fly away and never return. I will lose it. The monk replied gently, You have already lost it. The bird in the cage is not the bird you saved. That bird was vibrant and alive. This bird is slowly dying of captivity. Your attachment is destroying what you claim to love. Real love would risk the pain of loss for the joy of the beloved's freedom. With tears, the woman opened the cage. The bird hesitated for a moment, then flew out the window. It circled overhead once, singing a beautiful song, and then flew toward the horizon. The woman wept, feeling the pain of letting go. But underneath the pain, she felt something else, a deep peace. She had loved the bird enough to free it. She had chosen its well-being over her need to possess it. And in that choice, she discovered what real love feels like. This story teaches us that attachment, even when it masquerades as love, is ultimately about our own needs, not about genuine care for the other. We attach because we're afraid of loss, afraid of emptiness, afraid of being alone. And this fear-based holding actually harms what we claim to love. Detachment is the practice of loving without the desperate need to control, possess, or cling. It's the practice of appreciating people, situations, and things while they're here, and releasing them gracefully when it's time for them to go, or when holding onto them causes more harm than good. Now here's where this gets practical. You might be thinking, okay, but how do I actually detach? How do I stop clinging to outcomes I desperately want? How do I love without attaching? First, recognize what you're actually attached to. In most cases, we're not attached to the actual person or situation. We're attached to how we think that person or situation will make us feel. We're attached to the story we've created about what we need to be happy. For example, you might think you're attached to a specific person, but what you're actually attached to is the feeling of being loved, the security of companionship, the validation of being chosen. You might think you're attached to a specific career outcome, but what you're actually attached to is the feeling of success, the relief from anxiety about the future, the validation of your worth. When you recognize what you're really attached to, the feeling state you think you need, you can begin to question whether that feeling state actually depends on the specific external circumstance. Can you feel loved without that specific person? Can you feel successful without that specific outcome? Can you feel worthy without that specific validation? The answer is almost always yes. The feeling states we seek can be cultivated internally and found in multiple ways. They're not as dependent on specific external circumstances as we believe. Second, practice holding things lightly. This is a daily practice that builds your detachment muscle. Start small. Notice when you're clutching something, a plan, an expectation, an outcome. Take a breath and consciously loosen your grip. I would like this to work out, but I can be okay even if it doesn't. I hope this person responds positively, but I'm not destroyed if they don't. I prefer this outcome, but I trust that I can handle whatever happens. This is not pretending you don't care. It's not toxic positivity. It's honest acknowledgement of your preferences while releasing the desperate attachment that makes your well-being conditional. Third, remember that everything is temporary. This is the Buddhist teaching of impermanence, and it's one of the most liberating truths you can integrate. Everything changes. Everyone leaves eventually, if not through choice, then through death. Every situation shifts. Every feeling passes. Nothing remains exactly as it is. When you deeply understand this, attachment starts to seem futile. Why clutch desperately at something that's inherently temporary? Why make your peace dependent on something that's guaranteed to change? This doesn't mean you don't enjoy things while they're here. It means you enjoy them more because you're not constantly anxious about losing them. You're fully present with what is, rather than constantly fearing what might not be. Let me give you a powerful practice that can help you develop detachment: the release practice. Every day, practice releasing one attachment. It can be small or large. Maybe you release your attachment to a specific outcome today. Maybe you release your attachment to someone's opinion of you. Maybe you release your attachment to being right in an argument. Maybe you release your attachment to a relationship that's ended. To do this, sit quietly for a few minutes. Bring to mind what you're attached to. Feel the clinging, the grasping, the fear of loss. Then, take a deep breath and imagine opening your hands. Imagine releasing this attachment like releasing a bird from a cage. Say out loud or in your mind, I release my desperate need for specific attachment. I appreciate what was or is, and I trust myself to be okay regardless of the outcome. I open my hands. I let go. You might need to do this practice multiple times for the same attachment. Letting go is often not a one-time event but a repeated choice. Each time you practice releasing, you're weakening the grip of attachment and strengthening your capacity for healthy detachment. Here's what's beautiful about detachment. It doesn't diminish your capacity for love or joy. In fact, it increases it. When you're not constantly anxious about losing what you have, you can actually enjoy what you have more fully. When you're not desperately clinging, you can be more present, more appreciative, more genuinely engaged. Think about holding a butterfly. If you clutch it tightly, you'll crush it. But if you hold your hand still and open, the butterfly might rest there, and you can appreciate its beauty fully. And when it flies away, you can watch it go with appreciation rather than devastation. This is how detachment allows for deeper connection. You connect fully in each moment without the constant anxiety about the future. You love without the desperate need to control. You engage without the fear that losing this will destroy you. Buddhist philosophy also teaches something profound about the nature of loss. What we think we've lost was never truly ours to begin with. People are not possessions. Outcomes are not guarantees. The future is not within our control. When we operate from the illusion that we can possess people or control outcomes, we set ourselves up for inevitable suffering. Because eventually, that person will make their own choices. That outcome will unfold as it will. Reality will not conform to our desires. But when we operate from the truth that nothing is truly ours to possess, that everything is borrowed temporarily, that all we truly have is this present moment. We can engage fully with life while maintaining our inner peace. This doesn't mean becoming passive or not caring about outcomes. You can still work toward goals, still pursue relationships, still have preferences. The difference is that your well-being is not hostage to these things working out exactly as you want. Let me give you an affirmation that can help you cultivate healthy detachment. I engage fully with life while releasing the need to control outcomes. I love deeply while holding lightly. I appreciate what is while accepting what becomes. Now, let's address a specific situation where detachment is especially challenging, but especially necessary. Letting go of toxic relationships. Many people stay in relationships that harm them because they're attached to the history they share, attached to the hope that things will change, attached to the version of the person they wish they were, attached to not being alone. But this attachment is keeping you trapped in suffering, and the practice of detachment, while painful, is the path to freedom. Detaching from a toxic relationship doesn't necessarily mean you hate the person or deny that there were good aspects. It means you recognize that continuing in this dynamic is harmful, and you love yourself enough to release your attachment to what this relationship was or what you hoped it would become. You can have gratitude for what you learned. You can have compassion for the other person's struggles. You can acknowledge the good memories. And you can still choose to let go because your well-being requires it. This is mature detachment, not reactive, not bitter, not about making the other person wrong. Just a clear-eyed recognition that this is not serving your highest good and a courageous choice to release it. Here's a practice specifically for detaching from relationships. Write a letter to the person or situation you're attached to. Write everything you need to say, the gratitude, the pain, the hopes, the disappointments. Then write these words: I release my attachment to you this. I honor what was and accept what is. I free you and I free myself. I wish you well and I choose my own well-being. You don't need to send this letter. The practice is for you, not them. Fold it up and either keep it, burn it in a safe container as a ritual of release, or bury it. The physical act of writing and releasing can support the emotional and spiritual act of detachment. Remember, detachment doesn't mean you instantly stop caring or stop hurting. It means you stop letting your well-being depend on specific outcomes. It means you stop clutching desperately at things you cannot control. It means you choose your own peace over the illusion of control. And here's the ultimate truth about detachment. When you finally release your desperate attachments, you discover that you're okay. The thing you thought you couldn't survive without, you can survive without it. The person you thought you needed, you don't need them. The outcome you thought would destroy you doesn't destroy you. You discover your own resilience, your own wholeness, your own capacity to be okay regardless of external circumstances. And this discovery is the most liberating realization you can have. You are not as fragile as your attachments made you believe. You are not as dependent as your clinging suggested. You are stronger, more resilient, more whole than you knew. Detachment reveals this truth. It strips away the false supports you thought you needed and reveals the real support that was always there. Your own inner strength, your own capacity for peace, your own fundamental okayness. We're about to explore something that might completely transform how you see your struggles and your pain. What if everything you've been calling broken about yourself is actually your greatest source of wisdom and strength? Stay with me. Section 9. Heal your belief system. You are not broken. There's a belief that's been causing you immense suffering, and you might not even be fully aware of it. It's the belief that you are broken, that something is fundamentally wrong with you, that you need to be fixed before you can be worthy of love, success, or happiness. This belief manifests in countless ways. I'm too sensitive. I'm too damaged from my past. I'm not enough. There's something wrong with me. Everyone else has it figured out except me. I'm fundamentally flawed. These thoughts run through your mind so often that you've stopped questioning them. They've become the background noise of your existence, the lens through which you interpret everything that happens to you. When someone rejects you, your broken belief says, "See, they saw what's wrong with you." When you make a mistake, your broken belief says, "This proves you're inadequate." When something doesn't work out, your broken belief says, "Of course it didn't. You're not capable." But here's what I need you to understand. This belief is a lie. It's not the truth about who you are. It's a story you've been telling yourself, a story that was often planted by other people's words, by traumatic experiences, by a society that profits from your sense of inadequacy. And the most powerful thing you can do is to question this story and replace it with the truth. Buddhist philosophy has a profound teaching about this, the concept of Buddha nature. Buddha nature means that every being has an inherent enlightened nature, a fundamental wholeness and goodness that cannot be damaged or destroyed by any external circumstance or experience. You were born whole. You were born enough. You were born with inherent worth and value. Nothing that has happened to you since then has changed this fundamental truth about who you are. Yes, you've been wounded. Yes, you've experienced pain. Yes, you carry scars, but wounds and scars are not the same as being broken. A wound is something that happens to you. Being broken would mean something is wrong with you, and that's simply not true. Let me share a powerful metaphor that illustrates this, the story of cracked earth becoming fertile. In times of drought, the earth becomes dry and cracked. The surface splits open, creating deep fissures. To the casual observer, the land looks broken, damaged, destroyed. But then the rains come, and something miraculous happens. The water flows into those cracks, penetrating deeper into the earth than it ever could on smooth, uncracked ground. The water reaches the roots of dormant seeds buried deep below. And from those seemingly broken places, new growth emerges, stronger, more resilient, more vibrant than before. The cracks weren't damage. They were openings. They were pathways for the life-giving water to reach places it otherwise couldn't. The earth wasn't broken. It was being prepared for transformation. This is the truth about your pain, your struggles, your wounds. They're not evidence that you're broken. They're openings where wisdom can enter, where compassion can deepen, where strength can develop in ways that wouldn't be possible without them. Your sensitivity isn't weakness. It's the capacity for deep feeling and empathy. Your struggles aren't failure, they're your greatest teachers. Your wounds aren't defects, they're the birthplace of your wisdom and strength. Your past isn't a burden, it's the foundation of your resilience. Every single thing you've been calling broken about yourself is actually a source of power, depth, and authenticity that people who haven't walked through fire cannot access. Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron says, "Only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation can that which is indestructible in us be found." In other words, it's through our breaking that we discover what cannot be broken, our essential nature, our Buddha nature, our fundamental wholeness. Now, I want to address something important. Recognizing that you're not broken doesn't mean denying that you've been hurt. It doesn't mean pretending your pain doesn't exist or that your struggles don't matter. It means understanding the difference between experiencing pain and being defined by it. You can say, "I experienced trauma," without saying, "I am broken." You can say, "I've been hurt," without saying, "I am damaged goods." You can say, "I struggle with this," without saying, "There's something wrong with me." This distinction is crucial because it locates the problem in the experience rather than in your fundamental nature. And when the problem is in the experience, healing is possible. When the problem is in your fundamental nature, healing seems impossible because you would have to become someone else entirely. But you don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you actually are beneath all the stories, beneath all the wounds, beneath all the beliefs that have accumulated over your lifetime. Let me give you a practice that can help you begin to dismantle the broken belief and replace it with the truth. It's called the belief replacement practice. Step 1. Identify the false belief. Write down the specific ways you tell yourself you're broken. Be honest. What are the recurring thoughts that undermine your sense of wholeness? Step 2. Question the belief. For each false belief, ask, is this absolutely true? What evidence contradicts this belief? Would I say this about someone I love who had the same experience? What would be true if this belief didn't exist? Step 3. Replace with truth. For each false belief, write a truthful replacement. For example, false, I'm too damaged to be loved. Truth, I've been hurt, and I am still fully worthy of love. False, there's something fundamentally wrong with me. Truth, I am fundamentally whole, and I'm healing from experiences that were painful. False, I'm broken beyond repair. Truth, I am not broken. I am growing, healing, and becoming stronger. Step 4. Practice the truth. Every day, read your truth statements out loud. Say them even if you don't fully believe them yet. Your subconscious mind is listening, and repetition creates new neural pathways. Over time, these truths will start to feel more real than the lies you've been telling yourself. Here's a powerful affirmation for this work. I am not broken. I am not damaged. I am not too much or not enough. I am healing, growing, and whole. My wounds have made me wiser, not lesser. My struggles have made me stronger, not weaker. I am exactly who I need to be. Now, let's talk about the role of pain in your journey. Our society teaches us that pain is bad, that we should avoid it at all costs, that experiencing emotional pain means something is wrong. But Buddhist philosophy offers the Buddhist path to self-worth. Stop seeking validation and return to your inner power. 10. Emotional balance is your true strength. You cannot control life, only your mind and reactions. Life is a wild river, rushing with unexpected twists, sudden drops, and hidden rocks beneath the surface. You can't dam it up, redirect its flow, or predict every ripple. Storms brew without warning. Opportunities vanish like mist at dawn. People you love change or leave. The illusion of control is the greatest trap we fall into, believing that if we plan meticulously, grip tighter, or worry harder, we can steer the unsteerable. But the moment a diagnosis lands, a relationship fractures, or a dream collapses, that illusion shatters. What remains is the one territory you truly govern, the landscape of your own mind. Imagine standing on a cliff during a hurricane. The wind howls, waves crash below, and debris flies past. You cannot calm the storm, but you can plant your feet, breathe deeply, and choose not to leap into the chaos. That choice is power. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, discovered this truth amid unimaginable suffering. Stripped of everything, family, freedom, dignity, he realized that the final human freedom is the ability to choose one's attitude in any circumstance. Between stimulus and response there is a space, he wrote. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This space is where emotional balance begins. It's not about suppressing feelings or pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about observing the storm without being swept away. When betrayal stings, you feel the burn, but you don't have to torch the village in revenge. When failure strikes, you taste the bitterness, but you don't swallow poison and call it justice. The mind, untrained, is a reactive beast, lashing out or curling inward. But with practice, it becomes a disciplined ally. Start small. Next time traffic snarls and frustration rises, notice the heat in your chest. Label it anger, then ask, what story am I telling myself? Maybe it's this always happens to me, or I'm going to be late and ruin everything. Those stories are fiction. The reality is cars, lights, and time. By interrupting the narrative, you reclaim the wheel. Over time, these micro-choices compound. The colleague who undermines you in a meeting. You feel the jab, but respond with curiosity instead of venom. The partner who forgets an anniversary. Hurt flares, but you communicate instead of withdrawing. Each moment you choose response over reaction, You forge neural pathways of resilience. Neuroscience backs this. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, fires in milliseconds during stress, flooding you with fight or flight hormones. But the prefrontal cortex, your executive center, can override it with deliberate thought. Mindfulness meditation thickens this region like weightlifting for self-control. Studies from Harvard show that 8 weeks of daily practice reduces amygdala reactivity, lowering anxiety and impulsivity. You're not eliminating emotions, you're giving them a wiser boss. Consider a real-world master, Nelson Mandela. Imprisoned for 27 years, he could have emerged bitter, vengeful, ready to ignite civil war. Instead, he chose reconciliation. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, he later said, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. He controlled his mind, not the apartheid regime, and reshaped a nation. That's the alchemy of inner governance, turning suffering into strength. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. Modern life bombards us with triggers. Social media algorithms feed outrage. 24/7 news cycles amplify fear. Hustle culture demands perpetual performance. We're wired for survival, not serenity. Ancient humans needed hypervigilance to dodge saber-toothed tigers. Today, the tigers are emails and deadlines, but the biology hasn't caught up. Emotional balance requires countercultural discipline. Unplugging, reflecting, forgiving. Try this exercise tonight. Before bed, write 3 things that triggered you today. For each, note the emotion, the automatic thought, and one alternative response you could have chosen. No judgment, just observation. Tomorrow, when a similar trigger arises, pause in that Franklian space and test the alternative. You'll stumble. That's data, not defeat. Every conscious choice rewires you. The payoff: a life where external chaos loses its tyranny. You still feel deeply, joy, grief, love, but you're no longer their puppet. You become the eye of the hurricane, still amid the spin. This is true strength, not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. And in a world that peddles control as apps, planners, and productivity hacks, the rarest power is the one no one can take: sovereignty over your inner world. Inner stability creates true freedom. Freedom isn't a passport stamp or a fat bank account. It's not even the absence of chains, physical or societal. True freedom is the ability to act from choice, not compulsion, to love without fear of loss, to face uncertainty without crumbling. And the foundation of that freedom: inner stability, a calm center that external winds cannot uproot. Picture an ancient oak tree in a gale. Branches sway, leaves tear away, but the trunk stands firm, rooted deep in earth. Your emotional core is that trunk. When stable, you bend without breaking. When unstable, you snap at the first gust. Most of us live like saplings in a storm, reactive, fragile, blown whichever way the latest crisis pushes. A harsh word from a boss derails your week. A viral post about doom spirals you into paralysis. A fleeting romantic rejection convinces you you're unlovable. This is bondage disguised as living. Inner stability flips the script. It's the quiet confidence that says, I am enough, regardless of outcomes. It's the bedrock from which you launch dreams, not the sand that swallows them. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher born a slave, embodied this. Enslaved physically, he was freer than his masters because his happiness depended on nothing external. No man is free who is not master of himself, he taught. His leg was broken by a cruel owner. Epictetus reportedly smiled and said, "You will shatter it." When it did, he added, "Did I not tell you so?" No rage, no despair, just unshakable inner ground. How do you cultivate this? Start with self-knowledge. Most instability stems from unexamined beliefs. We carry childhood scripts. I must be perfect to be loved. Failure means I'm worthless, like invisible shackles. Journaling excavates them. Ask, what do I fear most? Why? Trace it back. Often you'll find a 5-year-old's logic running your adult life. Replace it with evidence-based truth. I am worthy as I am. Mistakes are teachers, not verdicts. Next, build rituals of return. Stability isn't a one-time achievement, it's a daily practice. Morning meditation sets the tone. 10 minutes watching your breath, nodding thoughts like clouds passing. Evening reflection closes the loop. What went well? What drained me? How can I adjust? Physical anchors help too. Exercise regulates mood via endorphins. Sleep restores prefrontal function. Nature recalibrates your nervous system. A 2019 study in Scientific Reports found that 20 minutes in a park lowers cortisol by 21%. Stability is holistic, mind, body, spirit aligned. Relationships test and temper this stability. Toxic dynamics erode it, healthy ones reinforce it. Learn to set boundaries without guilt. Say no to energy vampires. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow, not shrink. And practice radical acceptance for others' flaws, for life's messiness. Stability doesn't mean isolation. It means engaging without losing yourself. Consider the story of Malala Yousafzai. Shot in the head by the Taliban at 15 for advocating girls' education, she could have retreated into fear or hatred. Instead, she stabilized her inner world through faith, family, and purpose. "I don't want revenge on the Taliban," she said. "I want education for their sons and daughters." From a hospital bed, she forged a global movement. Her stability, rooted in values deeper than circumstance, freed her to change the world. Contrast this with the instability of chronic comparers. Scrolling Instagram, they see curated highlight reels and feel inadequate. Their self-worth yo-yos with likes and followers. This is freedom's opposite, a prison of external validation. Stable people celebrate others' wins without diminishing their own. They know their value isn't a zero-sum game. Inner stability also unlocks creativity and risk-taking. Fearful minds play small, avoiding failure. Stable minds experiment, knowing they'll survive setbacks. J.K. Rowling, rejected by 12 publishers, didn't destabilize into self-doubt. She persisted, and Harry Potter was born. Stability isn't rigidity, it's flexible strength like bamboo in wind. In relationships, it's revolutionary. Stable partners don't cling or control, they love from overflow, not need. They argue without annihilation anxiety. They forgive without forgetting lessons. This creates secure attachment, the holy grail of emotional health. Children raised by stable parents inherit the gift: confidence to explore, resilience to fall. Politically, stability prevents tribal hysteria. In polarized times, unstable minds demonize opponents, echo-chambering into extremism. Stable minds hold nuance, empathize without agreeing, and seek solutions over slogans. They're the bridge builders in a fractured world. Ultimately, inner stability is freedom because it liberates you from the tyranny of shoulds. You should be richer, thinner, more successful. Stability whispers, "Enough." You act from inspiration, not desperation. You give without scorekeeping. You rest without guilt. This is the freest life imaginable, not because nothing bad happens, but because nothing can unmake you. Emotional mastery over external chaos. The world is a circus of chaos. Pandemics, market crashes, political upheavals, personal betrayals. Chaos is the default setting. Mastery isn't eliminating it, that's fantasy. It's dancing with it, leading the waltz instead of being flung about. Emotional mastery is the art of feeling fully while steering wisely, of harnessing chaos as fuel rather than letting it consume you. Think of a surfer on a monster wave. The ocean is chaos incarnate, unpredictable, powerful, deadly. The novice panics, fights the current, and drowns. The master reads the wave, paddles in sync, and rides its crest to shore. Your emotions are that wave. Chaos crashes in grief, rage, ecstasy, and mastery is paddling with it, not against it. This begins with emotional literacy. Most people are fluent in happy, sad, mad. Masters speak a richer tongue. I feel abandoned, not just angry. I feel invigorated, not just excited. Numbing nuances defangs them. A 2007 UCLA study found that labeling emotions reduces amygdala activation, calming the body in seconds. Next time overwhelm hits, say aloud, "This is anxiety, tight chest, racing thoughts." Watch it loosen its grip. Then channel the energy. Anger isn't the enemy, suppressed or explosive anger is. Mastered, it becomes assertiveness. Sadness, mastered, becomes empathy. Even fear mastered becomes caution. Bruce Lee said, "Do not pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." Mastery is that strength, transmuting raw ore into refined steel. Tools abound. Cognitive reframing flips perspectives. Lost your job, chaos. Reframe, a door closed, what window opens? This isn't toxic positivity, it's strategic optimism. Evidence shows reframing reduces depression relapse by 50%. Breathwork is another weapon. The 4-7-8 technique, inhale 4, hold 7, exhale 8, activates the parasympathetic system, dousing stress fires. Practice daily. In chaos, it's your reset button. Storytelling masters chaos too. Humans are narrative creatures. Chaos feels random, meaningless. Craft a story. This setback is the forge for my comeback. Tolkien did this amid World War I trenches, birthing Middle-earth from horror. Your story doesn't deny pain, it gives it purpose. Community amplifies mastery. Solo, chaos can isolate. In trusted circles, you vent, gain perspective, borrow strength. Therapy, coaching, or mastermind groups provide mirrors. Is this reaction proportional? What's the fear beneath? Accountability partners celebrate your wins, call your blind spots. Real-life exemplars inspire. During the 2008 financial crisis, entrepreneur Sarah Blakely's Spanx empire teetered. Chaos. She mastered it by focusing on what she controlled: innovation, hustle, mindset. She cut her own salary, pivoted marketing, and emerged stronger. Billionaire status followed, not despite chaos, but through mastered response. In intimate relationships, mastery prevents chaos from corroding bonds. Arguments escalate when emotions hijack. Masters use I statements. I feel unheard when. They repair post-rupture. I overreacted. Let's try again. John Gottman's research shows couples with 1 positive to negative interactions thrive. Mastery tips the ratio. Globally, think of climate activists facing apocalyptic data. Chaos. Greta Thunberg, a teenager, could have despaired. Instead, she mastered fear into fierce action, sparking a movement. "I want you to panic," she said, "not to paralyze, but to propel." Obstacles to mastery, ego mostly. We defend reactions as identity. This is just who I am. Mastery requires humility. I'm a work in progress. Perfectionism too, aim for progress, not flawlessness. And distraction culture. Chaos thrives on scattered attention. Mastery demands presence. One task, one conversation, one breath at a time. Advanced practices deepen it. Shadow work integrates repressed parts. If you rage at others' laziness, explore your own. Forgiveness rituals release grudges. Write the letter, burn it. Gratitude journals rewire for abundance amid scarcity. The ultimate test, death. Facing mortality, chaos peaks. Masters like Steve Jobs did. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. His cancer diagnosis fueled fearless innovation. Mastery over life's ultimate chaos. In daily terms, mastery looks like this. Your flight's canceled, stranding you overnight. Chaos. The untrained scream at agents, spiral into victimhood. The master breathes, books the next option, finds a decent hotel bar, and journals insights from the delay. Same circumstances, worlds apart. Emotional mastery isn't stoicism's cold detachment. It's passionate engagement with guardrails. You cry at weddings, laugh till it hurts, rage at injustice, but always from the driver's seat. Chaos becomes your teacher, not tyrant. This exploration isn't mere philosophy, it's a blueprint. Life's river rages on. You can't control the current, but you can master your stroke. Inner stability is your anchor, emotional mastery your sail. With them, you don't just survive the chaos, you thrive in it, emerging stronger, freer, alive. The strength was always yours. Claim it.